I did that 5-minute preface to kind of lay the foundation of what I'm seeing. Tell us what you're seeing and where you think this is going.
You know, Alex, I listened to that, and I've listened to you before. I read Prison Planet and a lot of other documents that I have privy to, just like what you do behind the scenes. And I have to be in agreement with you. Everything is marching down the path in the same way of just what you just laid out at the top of the hour. My question is, and I have a question for you about this, it seems so focused on the U.S. Is the same type of implementation happening in other countries?
Yes. Every NATO country and Western countries, the master planners at the UN under UNESCO have written these, the whole world. Even Iran is following the World Health Organization Level 6 guidelines. So even, quote, enemies are following UN orders. And the UN has bragged this is the first global omnibus health system. And they're saying this is good for globalism, good for the New World Order. And so, yes, they're doing the same thing worldwide.
Well,
but you're right that the U.S. seems to be the most intensive.
It does. It seems as though this is absolutely a plot and plan against the American people. And what is happening out of Washington under the guise of health, which has been happening in the vaccine world for years, is they put up these fancy little pictures with all the smiley little kids and saying we're going to vaccinate you to keep you healthy. And what I'm hoping is from the things that you're doing and I'm doing and a handful of other of us on radio and television and internet, we're going to get people awake, because the only possible way that we have to revolt and stand up against this is a grassroots awakening of people just saying, no, I am not going to do this. I'm going to band together with people in my community, and I'm not going to take this vaccine, and I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Absolutely. Doctor, you were in Mexico when all this was happening down there at a conference. I mean, let's go over this. Let's talk about this and discuss what we really know about the virus. It's incredibly weak. They're saying it'll mutate into something deadly, but I've talked to other virologists, and they've said normally stuff mutates into something less strong or benign. You've got all these big health advisors in Europe and the United States that are on vaccine maker payroll. How are they coming out with a test vaccine in only months, not 6 months? The cloning technology of the virus. And then openly saying they're getting ready for forced inoculations, telling medical workers they've got to take it first. The Army saying they're standing by. Dr. Tenpenny, you've got the floor. Break it down.
Well, I agree with everything you've said, and the scariest part of all of this is that, it's all scary. I can't say the scariest, is that as they are manufacturing this vaccine, they don't have to produce and release a package insert of what's exactly in the vaccine until it's been approved for use. So all the scientific research that they have, there's 11 centers, NIH centers around the country that are now holding testing, human experimentation is what I call it. And these people who are rolling up their sleeves, and they claim for the sake of science and getting in compensation of that somewhere between $50 and $400 to get injected with a vaccine that has an unknown substance in it. There's 11 different sites. There are 4 different studies that are going on. They've started a study in Australia. They've started it in the U.S.
Houston, can't that be the cedar? I'm sorry to interrupt, but can't that, other vaccine trials have actually caused pandemics before, and they don't care if Gardasil's killing girls en masse. They don't care if the bird flu test in Europe.
They don't care. They don't care. And what they're going to do is they're going to watch this for 3 weeks for side effects. So if you were in the experiment today, Alex, and you got the first shot, they would follow you for 3 weeks to see whether or not you developed any sort of side effects. They would draw your blood to see whether or not you developed an antibody, and if it was looking positive, and like you low side effects and you had an antibody, the next round of experimentation is on babies. And they're using 2 different dosages of 2 different vaccines from 3 different companies. So how are they ever going to pool that data and crunch it? Real live scientists that do real good research are probably like pulling their hair out right now of thinking, how can they possibly be doing this?
Well, it's obviously quackery, so they can say, we did test, it's good to take. Just like they said the anthrax shot was good. Sorry, go ahead. They really are not in a position of wanting to do good science, and that's the bottom line here. Because of the 2006 pandemic laws that are going into effect, the only way that you can sue and that you have any compensation whatsoever is, number one, you have to identify willful intent
and you have to get permission from the Secretary of HHS to sue and get compensation. If they have very little experimentation going on, very little clinical trials with very short follow-up, how could they could say, well, gosh, we had no idea that it was going to cause this many problems. So they could not be accused of willful intent.
All right, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, I got a million questions here. I'm chomping at the bit. They've said other vaccines are safe, like anthrax and smallpox, and admittedly had to withdraw them. It killed so many people. So they're kind of testing the boundary. Gardasil's killing people. They won't withdraw it. The anthrax killed a bunch of people. They did. The smallpox did. They withdrew it. We know these flu trials the last year have been killing a lot of people previous to this. They're not withdrawing it now. They're setting that precedent.